Good morning, members of the Committee of Public Health, Social Development and Labor, members of Parliament, support staff, those in the public tribune, radio listeners, TV viewers, those following via social media, and members of the media. Welcome to this committee meeting of today, Tuesday, March 4th, 2025. We have established a quorum of 4 factions. Please stand for a moment of silence. Thank you. I have received notice of absence from the following committee members: MP Viren Kotai, MP Egbert Doran, and notice of lateness from MP Darrell York. Are there any notifications? I don't see any notifications. So as such, we move over to the agenda point for this committee meeting. The agenda point is the discussion on Citizen Draft Initiative National Ordinance to amend the National Ordinance limiting tobacco use of March 15, 2013, IS 1004, 2023-2024, dated August 14, 2024. We go over to the agenda point. On August 14, 2024, Parliament received the initiative draft National Ordinance to amend the National Ordinance limiting tobacco use of March 15, 2013 from citizen Khalil K. Rivan. This initiative draft National Ordinance aims to define the various forms and use of tobacco products, including vapes, limit the sale and marketing of such tobacco products to children under the age of 18, and further limit the use of tobacco products in publicly enclosed areas and government-owned facilities. It is good to note here that the document makes reference to a citizens' initiative law. Our legal system does not yet allow for such a citizen initiative law. As such, if Parliament deems it important and necessary, the initiative can be taken up by any member that would like to do so individually or collectively. Additionally, Parliament has other instruments that can be considered by this committee moving forward. It is also worth highlighting in this regard that this initiative addresses the topic of vaping, which has been a topic of discussion in various meetings, and several members have stated their concerns for the health of our youth who are especially at risk. The document is registered as incoming document IS 1004, 2023 to 2024, dated August 14, 2024, and can be found on the Parliament General Teams. Hence today, this meeting. So to which member of Parliament can I give the floor? I see MP Westcott. MP Westcott.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair Lady, and a very good morning to you. Good morning to our support staff. A good morning to my colleagues in the meeting. A good morning to those persons tuned in, as well as here in the Tribune of Parliament. Madam Chair Lady, firstly, allow me to thank you for, in addition to this particular document registered here at Parliament, to also provide the members of this committee, and I believe maybe all of the members of Parliament, but in any case, the members of this committee, with some other source and reference documents regarding the issue of tobacco use and proposals and initiatives to limit the use of tobacco. So thank you for providing those documents. And there are other documents on the topic as well. As you mentioned, Madam Chair Lady, there is a initiative draft law going back some years ago with respect to updating our outdated tobacco law, so to speak. That's the initiative there. Allow me at this time to explain further your reference to a citizen initiative. And correctly, as you stated, Madam Chair Lady, we don't know of that instrument yet. In Parliament, the procedure is that if a member of Parliament submits an initiative draft law, and that member is subsequently no longer a member of Parliament, then the faction of that member can pick up the draft and continue with it. That's the procedure that we use if we have an initiative draft from a member of Parliament. As mentioned, we have before us a draft initiative from a citizen, and I want to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Revan for his efforts in this respect. And unfortunately, or not really unfortunately, rather it is what it currently is, and that is that our draft laws are expected to be in the Dutch language. Something that I have been clamoring that we address from the root, and that is namely to give the English language an elevated status between our two official languages, which are the Dutch language and the English language. But that is a topic, that issue of giving an elevated status to the English language based on our Constitution, that is a topic for another debate. I come back to the issue at hand, Madam Chair Lady. And so we have this draft updating of our tobacco law, limiting, of course, the use of tobacco amongst our population. And I think that is what our focus should be on, while we members, individually or collectively, decide about the draft before us. Let us deal with the matters that the draft sought and seeks to address. And that is to bring our tobacco law, our smoking law, as some people call it, more up to par with current thinking, especially where the public health aspect is concerned. You refer to the issue of vaping, and yes, Madam Chair Lady, for the last couple of years, I, with successive ministers of especially public health, I have been discussing this matter of vaping amongst our population. I don't have to, I think I would be preaching to the choir to go into the details of what vaping does, not because I say so, not because other persons think so, but scientifically proven what vaping does to the brains of especially younger persons. That is an established fact. In reference to, Madam Chair Lady, some of the documentation that your office provided the members of this committee with, you would also see a proposal that I submitted to the government of St. Martin in addressing specifically the matter of vaping and some ways, some manners in which we can address this issue. Whether we do it on a lower level than a national ordinance, for example, by a national decree containing general measures and other such instruments that are usable. These proposals are in the reference document of myself as a member of Parliament. I also want to stand still a moment and thank the organization of Teen Times that has also been pushing for and supplying information regarding this topic. It is maybe not to the unsuspecting eye immediately visible, but it is a big issue here on St. Martin, where there's absolutely no control, not only about the sale of these devices, but also what is in the devices. And purposely the nicotine and other such other such are included in these documents to not in these instruments rather to not only have them bought by young people, but that they become addicted to them. And so, Madam Chair, ladies, saying all of that to again re-emphasize, we have a draft initiative before us that seeks to overhaul / update our entire tobacco law, but I would like attention to be paid to the fact that we must ensure and continue to press government for measures regarding limiting, discouraging, etc., the use of vaping instruments, vaping devices amongst especially our young people. So my plea to this committee would be that we push for this, we push for government's action in this area while we can discuss further the matters, the improvements, the updating of our tobacco law, because as we know, and again, in here it's preaching to the choir, the effects of smoking on our population and our public health. In fact, one of the things that I have constantly been saying in matters such as these is that sometimes we need to take the necessary steps without having all of the T's crossed and the I's dotted. And once we establish the framework, the foundation, the procedures, we can tweak it as we go along. Our sister island of Saba did exactly this, where their tobacco law, where the tobacco law is concerned, and establish measures against smoking in general for its population. And if, I shouldn't say if Saba can get it done. Saba has gotten a lot of things done that we still saying we want to do but haven't done, including plastic, etc. Again, a topic for another discussion. But we don't have to reinvent the wheel. And if we are serious about eliminating, addressing matters such as vaping and plastic bag use, etc., then sometimes we just got to take the necessary steps, yes, within the framework of the law, but we need to take action, and that is my plea where this draft initiative is concerned and the matter of vaping in particular. And again, I had some proposals which I sent to government quite some time ago. Government's response was, and I think it's still at that point, that they have an interministerial work group or committee looking at the matter of vaping that includes VSA, I believe Justice too, and definitely ECYS. And my question would be at this time, where are those efforts? What is happening? What did this committee or the work group produce in order for us at least collaboratively address the matter? So I would like to know that. I would like this committee to find that out where that is concerned as we discuss this topic. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP Westcott. William. Any other members? MP Roseborough.
Thank you, Chair Lady. Just to add to what was said by my previous speaker, who I know is very passionate about the topic, also based on the research that I have done, it seems like the vaping became very interesting under the youth because you have several flavors connected to the vaping. From persic to mango to strawberry flavor. And I've seen a rise when those flavors came out that the youth started to make use of those vapes more. So maybe it's also an idea to look into prohibiting the selling of those flavors, because that can also make a big difference if it's sec, the vapes without flavors. And I know, for example, in the Netherlands, I think it was in January 2024 that was introduced, and there was a big difference in the numbers of making use of the vapes. So that's just something that I also want to contribute to, that once there are no flavors more involved and there's it's prohibited to sell vapes with a flavor, that can also have a positive effect on the youth not making use of the vapes anymore because it's not interested to them anymore. So that's my contribution for now.
Thank you, MP Roseberg. Which one? MP Lewis, you have the floor.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning to the honorable members of Parliament, and good morning to those in the Tribune. Good morning to St. Martin. After reading the document, it's a very interesting one, as it is, as MP Westcott Williams mentioned, with regards to the content that it's in English. That was one of my comments. And also that St. Martin is a very small island, but with a great population. I do understand the draft initiative and also stand by it. But as Parliament, we need to work in collaboration with the necessary stakeholders. We also need to have the enforcers enforce when it comes to selling these devices to underage individuals. I can tell you, based on experience dealing with a cancer patient, a family member of mine, who basically got lung cancer, whose voice box was removed, vocals was removed, and saw how that individual had to suffer because of smoking. Vaping, smoking, it all goes in one. And as a small population, I think we need to crack down on it, especially among our youths. To each their own. If you're an adult and you choose to allow cancer to be your demise based on smoking, I do not smoke, I don't stand by it. And I think as a leader of this country, in order for us to have a more healthier young generation coming up, we need to do something about this legislation and not only have a discussion, but that we move forward to the next step where we can enact in having this legislation become a reality. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Lewis. We now have MP La Cruz.
A blessed morning, Madam Chair Lady, to the Khifir, my fellow colleagues, those in the Tribune, and all of St. Martin listening via all the social media platforms. Madam Chair Lady, it is a nice view seeing you sitting there. So, congrats. I know this is your first meeting. But, Madam Chair Lady, back on the topic, I've always had an idea of solving a problem by attacking it from different fronts and also the consequences of it, okay? So I went through the document. As my previous speaker also mentioned, it is in English, so that was one of the questions that I asked. I would have asked, is this something that could actually happen, or does it still have to be translated? And where are we going with that? But what I was thinking more that I'm missing, we are watching just the age, okay? When I think of a problem, I think we need to pay attention to from the beginning to the end. So we start at import. Where's the control on import? Then we speak of the sales. We speak of the use, the prevention, the cure, the addiction, and how are we going to care for the related sicknesses for this specific problem that we have. Now, I would be a hypocrite not to mention that I know of a smoke shop in Simpson Bay that I first saw a 18+ sign on, and then sometime last week I saw a 21-year. And I was like, hey. So I made a call. I asked, why did you do this? And the reply was simple. A lot of the vapes has on it 21-year plus. So my question would have been, why are we, if the focus is so much about the vapes, why don't we push right away for 21-year plus? That would have been one of my first questions, and definitely with the support from the other members of Parliament, if we're going to deal with a situation, let's grab it properly and move forward with it. Then, Madam Chair Lady, and most of you have already heard me mention the idea of finding ways to create a state-of-the-art cancer center here on St. Martin, okay? We are talking about the consequences of not only vaping, but tobacco, okay? And I am still seeking an audience with the Minister of VSA, and maybe even with this committee. Again, I don't want to be pushy, but I think this is something that is extremely important as we continuously hear of individuals dying from cancer. And it doesn't really have to be totally because of smoking and tobacco, but we have even forgotten hookahs. It is the same thing like vaping. Mm-hmm. So we speak of the vape cigar, you know, the electronic cigar, but wherever you go, there's hookahs. So again, I've always had the feeling that we tackle things halfway. And I suggest if we're going to deal with a problem, that we deal with it from the top and the initial all the way to the end. What are the consequences if someone gets cancer? Okay, how long does it take for this individual to be able to have proper health care? Okay, and I'm going to divulge something that, you know, took me by shock, you know, less than 2-3 months ago, is where I started to feel a lump in my chest. So seeing that cancer is something that many of my family members, especially on my mother's side, have died from or suffered from, you know, I got worried being the age that I am. So I requested an appointment with the doctor in October, and literally in January, halfway February was the date that I got an appointment with the doctor. Now, if this was a cancer that was very aggressive, the chances of survival for myself would have been maybe none. I've seen people get diagnosed and in 3 months they're dead. So again, as legislators, my suggestion would be that we take this by the horn and deal with it from A to Z. Not only the age, carrying the age from 16 to 18, let's put it to 21, let's check the import, let's check the sales, let's look at those vapes, for example, that have higher risk for cancers scientifically. Madam Chair Lady, the Member of Parliament, Ms. Westcott, has a lot of information that she could also share with us, and we could continue doing the research. But let's do this properly. Let's do it properly. Let's not just do it for a show. Let's do it because we want a better St. Martin for our people. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP La Cruz. And I must mention that I hear a lot of ideas coming forward, and I feel the animal from this committee to do something now about this and to get this done. So I'm happy to hear that, and I think that we should, you know, work together to get to put this in place, to put something in place, to get a law for tobacco and vaping on St. Martin. I move now to MP Waiver.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning to my fellow members of Parliament, those listening and viewing via the media. those that are sitting here in the tribune with us. I must agree with all my colleagues before me, and I feel that we have to look at a holistic approach to tackle all these issues, especially when it comes to tobacco use. If we look at the e-cigarettes, for example, that seems to be trending at the moment. You know, it was established in 2003, and when it first came out, it wasn't much of, let's say, a trend, something to do. But then slowly you saw that the marketing changed to who they were targeting as well. There is a great Netflix documentary as well. I forgot the name at the moment, but it really, it's about those that founded the vaping industry and exactly how it went and why they targeted the youth. Because it's all about, at the end of the day, economics for them. It's a business trend, and it's not really concerning the health of the population. When I look also at the documents, Madam Chair, that you've sent to us, which I appreciate highly, I'm also seeing a document from a then Minister De Wever from 2016. Now, there seems to be a trend within Parliament over the past couple of days as well, where we're seeing documents that are still in committees for discussion for many years before. So I hope, and I'm confident that with this composition that we have currently, that these issues will be tackled, because just as tobacco has been here for many, many decades, e-cigarettes seems to be the trend right now. But if we don't tackle this right now, there are other trends that will pop up eventually that we will have to deal with, because at the end of the day, if these companies are seeing a move from governments to kind of put them in a corner, they will see another way in which they can target our youth. So we need to be ahead of the curve, so to say, ahead of the trend, and together and collectively, we will be able to then tackle these issues. So I'm happy to see the draft legislation, and I hope that we will be able to pick it up as a committee member and then make its way further to actually see it become a law, you know? So thank you, Madam Chair. That'll be all for me right now. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Weaver. Before I move on to MP Westcott Williams, I just wanted to give some comments on some points that were mentioned before. MP Westcott Williams mentioned the existence of an interministerial work group. And before the meeting, we did look up just that exactly, and we found that there is, according to the Minister of ECYS, there is an interministerial work group that consists of Justice, TIAT, FEASA, and ECYS. So it's 4 ministries that are in that work group. And during the budget debate, this question came up, and it was said that this interministerial work group is working on this topic. So I also second MP Westcott in saying that we should find out how far they are now, because it has been already some months that they mentioned, I think it was end of last year, that they mentioned that they have this work group. I think that as a group here, we need to find out how far they are. So I will come back and ask you what you think about that. And regarding something that MP La Cruz mentioned, where he looked at the entire trajectory from imports and sales, and then he said use and prevention. I just wanted to mention right there in the middle, there is placement also, placement in the supermarkets, where these products are placed at eye level, and the marketing that's done that attracts the people. So I welcome that aspect of the discussion in looking at the entire sequence of how these products come into our island. So now I would like to give MP Westcott Williams the floor.
Thank you once again, Madam Chair Lady. And just for information sake to my colleague, to my left with respect to the draft initiative that MP Weaver referred to from former MP DeWeaver, and that is exactly what I was referring to when I explained how a draft initiative can go, a draft initiative law can go if the MP is no longer a member or is no longer a member of Parliament. But it becomes a little tricky if that member was an independent member of Parliament, because then what faction would pick it up? So automatically, again, if a former member of the Democratic Party, just to mention an example, had submitted one, then the faction, the Democratic Party, could continue the handling as of where it was, so can pick it back up. And that goes for any faction. But now in the case of an independent member, you know, which faction would pick it up? That does not mean that the topic as such, and maybe making use of what was done in the process to come to the initiative, cannot be used to move the topic further. So I just wanted to explain that. And Madam Chair Lady, my next point you have already addressed, and I believe we should really ask it because it comes down to priorities. And if this committee and further Parliament establishes, which they have done in the past, that this matter is a priority because of different reasons, then I not only tell us that an interministerial committee is working on it, but could we get an update? So what has been done so far and what are the expected steps? So in our questions, this should be asked, because with all due respect, and we understand, and it's a good thing, it belongs between ministries. But then, okay, so since then, because this interministerial thing, I don't want to exaggerate, but I think I heard it like maybe since 2023 that it was established. So any results by now would be my question that we should put to the ministers. And secondly, the matter of the STEPS survey that would show some of the health issues our population is facing. Where are we at this time? There should have been preliminary results available there. Thirdly, the issue that keeps coming up in this context, and let's get a position on it, and that is the issue of so-called syntaxes. You know, in this light, yeah, can we hear about it? And again, governments over the years, yes, no, maybe so, but could we just get a position on it? Madam Chair Lady, my colleague MP La Cruz mentioned an issue about a state-of-the-art cancer facility on St. Martin. Without, of course, we don't have like the information in terms of what, if this is feasible, how, but anyhow, what we need to start with is see that the agreement that exists between hospitals in the Dutch Caribbean to begin with, and it can be expanded thereafter, is that having an effect in terms of utilizing different specialty systems and parts of the individual hospitals to have that exchange for our patients? And I say this noting the fact that a couple of days ago, I happened to pick up at the St. Martin Medical Center, and mind you, we're not yet in our new hospital, so imagine, and was told that a particular machine in use by the urologist is one of very few, and definitely the only one in the Dutch Caribbean, here at St. Martin, here at our medical center. And why can we then not make use of that facility also for the other islands? And again, I start with the Dutch Caribbean islands, the Dutch Caribbean countries. You know, and the same thing, if there is a facility at a hospital in one of the other islands, let's focus on that facility, the cost of getting there, et cetera, and whatever goes with the referrals of our patients. But I thought that was quite an interesting remark. And I've understood, and that, for example, to have that kind of a treatment via that machine for patients on Curacao, they are sent to Colombia. You know, so where is this Dutch Caribbean hospital agreement that we should have amongst ourselves? And how effective is it to the specialization that different countries have? Why can't we just focus on that so that we too, where we have that facility, can be can look at what we could probably call medical tourism, because seemingly we do have. And I think it's only going to get even better in our case when we get a new hospital. And then, so if we could find out something more about that, where it pertains to treatment for our people. And then the issue of, I too would like to know, and again, if we can get it really zoomed in on the topic at hand, and that is when it comes to the imports. Of course, we have heard of the Asikura system, and but can that really help us to move to the next step where the control of imports is concerned? And if you can get an update in the context of what was mentioned by my colleague in terms of starting there, because the same discussion, import, sale, usage, penalties, etc., exists surrounding the ban on the sale of single-use plastic bags. The same issue, do we start at the import points? Do we, so the same discussions and the control. I think that government government has to look in a very, very serious way at the overall control of our laws. So often we hear, St. Martin doesn't have any laws, people could do what they want. That is not necessarily so. Yes, in some cases we don't have the laws, but in the cases that we do have, the control on sticking to the laws is a big issue. That's why persons are able to act as if there are no laws. So, Madam Chair Lady, if in the report from this meeting or our correspondence to the government, I can see these matters taken up, I would be very, very grateful. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP Westcott Williams. I have one announcement that I forgot to mention, that MP Otley also sent in a notice of absence. We did know before the meeting, and it slipped me to mention. And also I received a notice of absence from MP Rayon Peterson. So I apologize that I didn't mention that as yet. I now give the floor to MP Lewis.
Madam Chair, sometimes when we leave MP Westcott Williams go first, she tends to take and speak on every single point that you would like to deliver. But I would like to still go on the path of enforcement. Laws are made by the legislator or come through the legislator, and the executive branch is supposed to execute and enforce. The problem we have in St. Martin is indeed the enforcement. Not only the enforcement thereof, but also we need to come with heavy monetary sanctions for the violation of these ordinances. It is important that we do so. And also not only that there's the interministerial discussion or committee, but where finance is concerned, the legislative ordering would also need to be amended. So when it comes to sanctions, monetary sanctions, the Ministry of Finance should also be involved in the interministerial committee. And of course, my point is, how far are we in this committee Ministers change, but civil servants remain. And it is imperative that we get the ball rolling. I am not going to sit here in Parliament and be another one just having to sit here either being quiet or either speaking. I am going to hold government accountable. I'm going to hold myself and this Parliament accountable for us to get things going. We have to be proactive, and we also have to be active enough to bring the change that St. Martin so need in anything that we do. And with that said, Madam Chair, I thank you.
Thank you, MP Lewis. MP Darrell York, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon to you, the griffier, esteemed colleagues, those in the tribune, and the viewing public. Madam Chair, this topic is something very near and dear to me. So when I hear tobacco, when I hear MP Lacruz and MP Westcott Williams speak on cancer facilities, etc., being one that lost a parent to lung cancer, this is something that touches home for me. As it pertains to international hospitals, those within the kingdom, etc., if we were to look at how we go about things now, as it pertains to going to Panama and the other Latin countries, cancer patients are on a rise, that's to say it lightly, especially from the island of St. Martin. I remember sitting in one of the hotels and one of the workers walking up to me and literally asking me what's going on St. Martin, because every Friday there's busloads of patients coming to our hotel. And this is something that I think goes unseen by the general public because it's unheard. I think the only people that actually feel it are those in SZV when it comes to the bills and the finances of it, and the loved ones, of course. In speaking with, I had an interview with Dr. Maku Thomas, the director of Turning Point, a couple of weeks ago, and various topics such as drug use and even vaping, an initiative of something that MP Westcott Williams is very passionate about, came up. And, you know, vaping is something that's very much underrated because it comes with its own drawbacks and negatives, but it also has a tail, right? And to find out or to hear that, you know, you have people, children, students, addicted to vaping already from the ages of 8 and 9, and the tail that vaping has, because when you start vaping at such an age, you get, how you would say, I wouldn't say numb, but you become very used to the behavior of smoke, which leads to other types of drug use in the later years, and not even later years, you say in the 30s or 20s, but as of 10, 11 years old, you already have children or students on hard drugs. That's something that is rampant on the island. That is something that doesn't get enough attention, if you were to ask me. And I think, so I would like to thank the initiators of the initiatives thus far, and even the draft initiative that was submitted to Parliament in 2024, August 2024. And I think regardless of who submitted it, it's a start. And instead of starting from scratch, although it's in English, which the translation would be, I think, the last step, I think it's something that should be picked up and dealt with in post-haste, because the problem that we have today is only the tip of the iceberg, and once we really delve into it, it is something that is slowly sinking a certain part of our demographic on the island. So my full support goes out to this, everything around this topic. And as it pertains to enforcement, after seeing how things went or things are going prior to the plastic ban, as it pertains to enforcement, I don't think we should wait until this is passed, this ordinance is passed, to then work on the preparations for enforcement. I think that is something that should go parallel to what we're doing in here. I know that the President of Parliament has been in talks with the government on finding ways, and I think I read an article lately with a most recent meeting, in finding ways on how to increase the collaboration and cohesion between Parliament and government. And I think that is something that's very imperative where this ordinance or pending ordinance is concerned, because you could have, at the end of the day, the best ordinance, but with zero enforcement, we still have no steps. We are still not making any progress. So where that is concerned, I think that's a point greatly underrated and that should be worked on. And with saying that, that would be my contribution for today. Thank you.
Thank you, MP York. We now have MP La Cruz.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Madam Chair Lady, just a comment concerning what MP Westcott mentioned. And I did a small comparison because, and I mentioned this before, my mom is a cancer survivor and she has had cancer 3 times. And the first time that she got it, she was treated in St. Thomas. And St. Thomas is a Caribbean nearby island under the American flag, but it is a island of 32 square miles and has a population of 51,634, according to the last census that was done. So it is smaller than St. Martin. And in St. Thomas, there are 5 cancer centers. 5 specialized cancer centers. So I would not want to water down the importance of a cancer center here on St. Martin by making it a department in the hospital. You know, if we are talking about literally being able to take care of our own, but also medical tourism, something that has been discussed, and I've heard it numerous times here in government and on the floor of Parliament, that it needs to definitely be something specialized that people would be able to come to St. Martin and, you know, just for that treatment, not only within the kingdom, but also the other neighboring islands. Then, Madam Chair Lady, a small comment concerning something a little off topic, but that was mentioned, the ban of single-use plastics. While in the ministry, going through the legislation and, you know, the whole, what I missed and what I suggested then was simply setting a date to the importers that, for example, the 1st of January 2026 would be the last date that you could actually bring in single-use plastics. On the 1st of January 2027 would be the last date that the distributors would be able to sell whatever they have left. The 1st of January 2028 would be the last that it could be used, with the same agreement from the French side, and then you impose fines. What I miss, for example, is things like those businesses that already have those products and actually that's their main source of income. How are they going to be compensated? You know, are we going to do then reduce TOT on the businesses that actually are now only selling plastics that could be reused? You know, those are little things that I think caused a little stress when it came to the execution of that law. So definitely I would not want in our preparation for what we are now speaking about, that we make that same mistake by not putting these things in place, you know? And again, I don't know if it was thought of then, because I wasn't part of it, but that would definitely be something that we should pay attention to. Then, and I asked the Minister of Justice what, and if there were any plans to fix the scanners at the harbor, because we're now only speaking about tobacco products, but MP York also spoke about drugs. So this is something definitely that I would like to see the Minister of Justice come up with a plan to execute. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP La Cruz. MP Roseberg.
Thank you, Chair Lady. Just to add to the discussion furthermore, seeing that it was mentioned and also confirmed that there is a working group, it might be an idea indeed to find out where the group is at this moment, because it will be unfortunate if we are both working on the same thing. So if they are working on legislation, it can come back to Parliament so that Parliament can also add their input in the legislation and be co-legislators. And also what I would like to add to that, we have seen, at least when I compare the several laws, you see the age limit of 18 years. But what was very interesting, in Aruba, for example, the law was changed, and it was changed to 21 years because of the severe risks and protecting the youth even more based on the World Health regulations. So maybe it's also an idea for us to do the research to see if 18 years is enough to limit it, or should we also raise it to 21 years? So that is based on what was brought forward here today, that you can maybe also look at those aspects and find out where the government is at this moment, so that we don't do double work and we are very effective with our time. That's it.
Thank you, MP Roseberg. MP Westcott Williams.
Thank you again, Madam Chair Lady. Madam Chair Lady, again, just to explain, my colleague MP La Cruz mentioned the issue of which is an issue, yes it is, with respect to the implementation and control of the ban on the use of single-use plastic bags. And I don't know if the members of the committee are aware of how that whole matter of date of enforcement went about. Namely, that actually Parliament had established a date for that law to go into effect. And subsequently, the government asked to take out the date, and this was when the date had already passed, and give the government the opportunity to establish a date of going into effect. And the request for that was to deal exactly with the components that my colleague referred to, talking with merchants and other affected parties. However, the government decided to take another course. So the date for the effective implementation of that law has not been established, and the government is looking at new legislation and now taking the issue of import into consideration. And I also explained this for the general public because it is still difficult for some persons to understand that a law that was passed by Parliament unanimously is still not ratified. In other words, it still has not gone into effect. But that is where things are at. I do want to say that with the recent activities in this context, I really honestly hope that whatever direction that law is going to take now, be it amended or be it another law that would then regulate the import of single-use plastic bags at the point of import, that at least something could happen, which we would then have in order to do controls and whatever else have you. So I just wanted to give the explanation where things stand in this respect. And Madam Chair Lady, I ask about the issue of, or for us to request an update with respect to the results of the STEPS survey. And one might be able to recall that from the population survey, it was revealed, and of course, Madam Chair Lady, this is exactly your forte, so you would understand how you judge numbers, especially in a population survey, you know, but in any case, it does give an indication. And in the case of smoking use, so smoking, it's like just over 6% of our population.
3.9% for smoking.
3.9%
of 16 plussers.
of 16 pluses.
Yes, 3.9% and only 1.7 admitted to smoking weed. But we question that because that is what was admitted, but it's more of a taboo to say that you're smoking weed, but cigarettes is less of a taboo, and that was 3.9%.
Madam Chair Lady, could I ask you those numbers that you gave are which? Because
the census.
I'm looking at the synopsis of the census, and it says here substance use and gambling, population in percentage. Some prefer not to respond. Gambling, so visit casinos, gambling, and buying lottery tickets is 3.7. Partaking in other drugs, 0.1. Smoking marijuana, 3.9. Smoking cigarettes, 6.3.
Okay. So
6.3.
I did call the department this morning to find out, so.
So that's what
okay,
we
so
have
6.3.
as part. Yes, 6.3. Smoking cigarettes.
Yeah.
And then just to give the complete picture of substance use and gambling, drinking alcoholic beverages is 29.3%.
Yes.
So that's how that. So again, smoking
Okay.
marijuana 3.9 at least admittedly.
Yeah.
And then smoking cigarettes 6.3. And on a population of on our population and of our very transient population, you know, 6% smokers, and that's who admitted.
Yeah.
It is, regardless to what it is, the effects of that, and also then we could go into discussion about secondhand smoke and whatever else have you, but it does have an effect on our public health, and because of that, on the quality of life of the people of St. Martin. So from this perspective, I just join the other members of Parliament in stressing the importance of this matter. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP Westcott. MP York.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to chime in on the importance of what the previous speaker, MP Westcott, just stated. The numbers, especially amongst the group of the demographic that we're speaking on, it doesn't properly represent that group, because I don't think the census is going to ask a 10-year-old or 11-year-old, do you smoke marijuana? So, like I referred to earlier, the tail that vaping has is much greater than what the numbers would imply, and I really don't think that, I think MP Westcott mentioned it earlier, waiting until the ordinance is ready or completed, I don't think we have that time. So any decree or anything that we could think about or has been thought about in the past that is enforceable, I think is paramount now to curb or try to curb the increasing numbers of that demographic, being the youth, that we're always passionately speaking about. So I look forward to working towards that resolution, and everything concerning this has my full support. Thank you.
Thank you, MP York. Moving forward now, there are different ways how I think that as a committee we can tackle this, and I have heard various I've heard various suggestions from the members, and based on the discussion that we've had, and one of them is, I think primarily, is that we need to find out what is happening with the interministerial committee So I suggest that then our committee of VSA, send a letter to the 4 ministers in this interministerial committee, and there we will ask for instance, any update on their work so far. We would ask them, I think we should ask them to come in, but I will ask you all what you think about that. We can ask the interministerial committee to come into Parliament to let us know how far they are, what they have done. We would also like to have more information about the STEP survey. We would like to have government's position on syntax. We would also like to ask, and this would be specific for the Minister of VSA, so I'm thinking maybe this part we can even have a separate committee meeting with the Minister of VSA to ask about the cancer center and also how St. Martin can do more with medical tourism and medical tourism within the Dutch Caribbean, etc. So that whole aspect, that to me, that can be a separate meeting with the Minister of VSA, but to have at least all 4 ministers for the part about the interministerial committee, the syntaxis, government's position on that. Also, very important, mentioned by Minister Lewis and, I'm sorry, once a minister, right? MP Lewis and MP Westcott Williams, the control on the imports, the Asikuda system, and the enforcement of, and the sanctions. I think that one could be a meeting with the Justice Minister separately as well. So I will bring this forward to you, and I think that after once I bring the various ways how we can maybe tackle this forward, I will ask for a break of 5 minutes, and then we can come back and say as a committee how we want to move forward with this. But I do underscore what I think everyone is saying, less action and let's get it done. So I want us to come together and really say, yes, we agree, or we don't agree. How do we want to move forward? We want this interministerial committee to come in. We want separately the ministers, VSA and Justice for specific areas mentioned today. There is also an opportunity to have a committee member, an MP, could also draft a new initiative draft amendment, the same as this one here that was submitted now, and the one that was submitted before by MP De Weaver. I see, personally, when I read both documents, I see where we could use a lot of what former MP De Weaver brought forward. And if we could add the vaping in there, add the timelines that was mentioned, add the age, the 21 years, change the age to 21 years, things that were mentioned here today. I'm looking at if there is an MP in the committee, or if the committee on a whole would like to take this upon themselves, ourselves, to put something together still, so that when, and it might be after we meet with the interministerial committee, so that we have more the background of what's going on, because I think they also did a survey. So once we have that information and we have these 2 drafts, I think it's quite doable for us to put something new together and go through the whole trajectory and get this done. Let's, get it moving. So having said that, I see that I have 2 MPs wanting to say something, and then after that we will have a short break of 5 minutes. So MP Roseberg?
Thank you, Chair Lady. Just to add to what you said or to confirm that you have my support in writing, that the committee can write a letter to the working group to get the clarity in where they are, but then specifically mentioning in that letter legislatively where they are. So if there is already a law in the making, and then also to add, seeing what was also mentioned by myself and my colleagues, what will be in place temporarily until the law is completed, because that can take a while, of course. And I agree that based on that information, that we then can decide if it's needed to start from scratch, because as MP Westcott Williams stated, we cannot use that legislation and work in it, the draft initiative law from the member, the Weaver. So we can look then into, okay, what has been done and what has been submitted as by the citizen, so that we can see how we can combine it. But before reaching there, I do believe we need to know where the government is, so that we don't do the same work. So you have my support on writing the letter on behalf of the committee with that content in it, and then we can also request the committee to come to Parliament, but that is clear on what we would like answers on, so that it's not too broad.
Thank you, MP Roseborough. MP La Cruz.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Madam Chair Lady, a quick question, because I've not heard anyone make specific comments concerning the proposal that is before us that was actually before us to discuss today. So are we going to do that in a subsequent meeting, or is it still an idea to make the comments on it now? Because I have a couple questions, so I don't know.
Yes, MP La Cruz, you can speak on the draft before us. That is the main reason why we're here today. So any questions you have on the draft, you can bring those forward today. But what we have said from the beginning, because this is a citizen initiative law, so it is not, it was not brought in by an MP. So as such, you can speak on it, but our laws do not have room for the citizen initiative law. But because it's such an important topic, we wanted to bring it in to see how how we can move forward with it. Okay, so on the topic, of course, you can speak. Did you have specific questions about something that's in here? No.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. So then I would prefer, right, to have the meetings that you suggested, and then we go over it, decide, how we're going to proceed with it before making comments on the proposed. Okay? Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP La Cruz. We do, okay, because I did want to have the break, but I see that we want to move through. I think we can push through with the meeting. Let's go. So let's go with MP Sarah Westcott Williams.
Well, actually, Madam Chair Lady, thank you, but it was to explain to MP La Cruz, but he himself kind of suggested, and that is what I would have suggested based on his question one, and also to tell you that I think pretty much what you have suggested is in line with what the members here have spoken about and requested. So I would say just let's move with the agreement unless we have objections.
Yes.
Then, yeah, so that's what I wanted to add.
Thank you, MP Westcott Williams, and MP York.
Maybe I missed it. Thank you, Madam Chair. Maybe I missed it. But on the point you made a while ago about there's no citizen law for initiatives, there's a lot of by the lack of laws or whatever, there's a lot of yellow tape, I would say, when it pertains to these things. But seeing that the citizen is affiliated, a member of a party, would it be an idea for the party to basically just copy it and submit it again and make it go easier? Like, in all fairness, I think that would hasten the process.
Thank you for your point, MP York. We have MP Westcott Williams.
Yeah, thank you again, Madam Chair Lady. And just to respond, I think the MP has a genuine question, and he might have missed that part in terms of the taken over, the fact that the law can be taken over definitely by this faction or any other faction, but then we still have to make sure that, for example, you have an English translation, that you have in it what we would like to have in it, and that's why the comparison before we decide whether it's our faction or this committee basically pushing a draft law. So I just wanted to clarify what I thought was a genuine question, what I think is a genuine question by the MP. So MP, even if that is through you, Madam Chair Lady, even if that is to be the case, it will be following our discussion on the draft that was at Parliament by a former MP, this one, and the concerns raised by members of Parliament in here. Hopefully some of those can be alleviated when we hear from the government, and I think we need to push hard to get that status update from the government ASAP. Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Okay, thank you, MP Westcott Williams. So as proposed, we will continue with a letter to the government and specifically to the 4 ministers who are over this interministerial committee. And so we will seek answers on these specific questions. What is added from what I said before was that we will also specifically ask about legislation. I know that it was mentioned in the Central Committee last year that the objective of what the interministerial committee was undertaking, that it was the objective to adjust the relevant national ordinance. So we will specifically ask about what legislation is already being done so that we know where we stand here. And so if there are no objections, that's the way how we will move forward with the committee. Any objections? We see none. So are there any further comments? If there are none, then we move forward, and that's how we're going to go. So a report of, so we will send a letter, and then I thank you all, ladies and gentlemen. We have come to the end of this meeting, and thank you for your participation. Thank you highly for your participation today, and I hereby close this meeting.